Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Vitality Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Herman, and my co-host, Joe DeProfio.
What's going on, Scott?
I wanted to be a little animated and excited today. How's
Oh,
that?
it's definitely. I think it's great. Being excited is always a good thing.
Well, I want to thank everyone for showing up. I know you guys have been increasingly enjoying the podcast, and Joe and I are doing our best to really stick to our Sunday schedule. In a few months from now, hopefully, we'll be able to do it twice a week. But, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about today's subject. Today, guys, we have an interesting title for today's podcast, and it's called Body Positivity, Body Positive versus Obesity. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, and I think that a whole lot of what happens nowadays is that people try to raise like health awareness, and what happens is that people take it a step too far. They get offended about it, and being offended is a good thing because it causes the opportunity for conversation and discourse.
Correct. But I think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves real quick.
Maybe
So,
a little bit.
yeah, a little bit. Let's backpedal really quick. So, Joe and I decided that we wanted to talk about this topic because of the article that you guys see on the screen right now. And I posted a link to the article so you guys can go down in the info section and click it if you want to read it on your own, if you want to stay with us in real time. And I'll also, guys, I'll be scrolling through the article right here as we go through the podcast. But it brings up an interesting thing in society. And before we start really talking about this, we need to make it very clear, like this isn't a video where anybody should come here and feel attacked. This is a video where, Joe and I want to approach this topic as unbiased as possible, but obviously in a way where it relates to our own personal experiences and our beliefs, and try to tackle this subject in such a way where people feel like they can talk about it, whether they're on the overweight side, I guess we'll say, and what society deems normal side, I guess. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just trying to. We need to establish some common ground really quick before I guess we move forward, so that anybody who tunes into this podcast doesn't think that Joe and I, are just like on a witch hunt for obesity or something like that.
Right.
So you agree, Joe?
Absolutely. I mean, we're both people that are in the fitness industry, and we're not in the fitness industry to try and get anybody down. We just want to do as much as we can to help people grow to be the people that they want to be.
I agree. And the common ground, I guess, here is this. Now, obviously, in society, there are some people, no matter what you look like, there are going to be people who criticize you, make fun of you. Like, I was always really in shape growing up, and I got made fun of for having muscles. Like, you're always going to see some sort of criticism. Unfortunately, for those of you who might be a bit overweight, you might be subjected to a bit more criticism than others, and that's why I feel like this subject gets really touchy, and we now live in like the society where everything is deemed acceptable. But the title of this video is to really figure out, like, in terms of being healthy, where do we really draw the line between... Hold on one second, guys. My dog's barking. He doesn't like the subject either. Where do we really draw that line between, being body positive and being accepting of who we are as individuals versus kind of turning a blind eye to what's deemed healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where Scott, where you were, really in shape growing up, I wasn't. I grew up and I was really, really, really small. I was really skinny. And then, a couple of years after I started going to college, I got to the point where it was either I had to lose weight or my health was going to be at, a pretty significant risk.
Yeah, and someone said, how'd you get made fun of for having muscles? Like, it was just, people who weren't into fitness would make fun of me for being in shape and healthy because maybe inside they knew they should probably be taking care of themselves and they didn't want to. So it's easier to, let's face it, that's where most bullying comes from. There's always some kind of like internal struggle that projects itself into bullying. And I feel like the people that bullied me for being in shape or working out were kind of internally projecting that they wish they would go to the gym or they had the drive to do what I was doing. I think that's where it comes from. And Doc Ghost, thank you very much for the donation, bro. Joe and I both saw that. So With this article, okay, let's dive right into the article. It's titled "51 Ways to Make the World Less Hostile to Fat People." First, learn that fat isn't a negative adjective. So right out of the gate, guys, I read this article with Joe, and like it's coming. I feel like the article itself is coming from a very negative place. And what I mean, and you guys will see as we go through the reasons, but I just kind of want you to keep this in mind as we're going through them. I feel like this person, I don't know if this is a photo of the actual author or not, but I feel like this person dealt with some fat shaming in their life, and they're coming at it from like maybe a place where they were shamed a lot more than someone else. What do you think, Joe?
I think that an article like this has to come from somewhere other than noticing that there's, an issue with how overweight people are treated. And I think as someone who, is somewhat professional when it comes to writing myself, I think that when you're going to provide some sort of like informative content or something like that, what you need to be providing is something that is coming at it from a neutral stance. And that is not what this article does. This article doesn't assume any sort of positive intent or assume that people are simply misinformed. It assumes it tonally, it assumes that people are just jerks.
Yeah, and I feel like an article like this also makes anyone who maybe was fat shamed reading it, it kind of steers them, down a path where they're going to be really bitter about the subject versus open and accepting or willing to talk about it. Even if you don't change their mind, they'll still be willing to talk about the actual subject matter. And Scott Huey, I saw your donation, bro, and we can talk about that towards the end of the podcast. I'll make sure I won't forget. So let's dive right into it really quick. First things first. First, learn that fat isn't a negative adjective. And I mean, when someone says the word fat to me, fat, skinny, like muscular, tall, short, it's all the same. If someone says the word fat and it bothers you, it's because you're bothered by that. There's like an internal struggle going on where that word bothers you because you want to make a change, but maybe you can't or don't know how. At least that's how I feel about it. Because if you were body positive and accepting of who you are and what you look like, being called fat or tall or short or skinny, like it wouldn't bother you because it's just a characteristic of what you look like.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty accurate, right on the nose. I mean, adjectives are adjectives, and it's what additional meaning you look for in the word that is going to bring out however you're feeling about it. So if you're assuming that someone is calling you fat and calling you fat from a negative place, I mean, text carries no tone, right? So if somebody sends you that message, you're not going to really get it. But you know, you know, it's what you look for in it. If you're looking for something negative, that's what you're going to see.
Exactly. So the article right here, I'll start off. I'll read it real quick. Hey, feeling like you want to be a decent person? Awesome. Let's talk about fat phobia. Yes, I'm talking to you, my non-fat friends. I'm inviting you to educate yourself about the experiences of fat people as we move through the world and to challenge you to be our ally in creating a utopia of fat acceptance. And right out of the gate, guys, this paragraph bothers me because, like I said, there is a line that needs to be drawn between, you know, accepting yourself and what's healthy. But we'll get to that. Sure, maybe you don't directly ridicule fat people when you really like Melissa McCarthy, which is funny because I just bought her latest movie and it was hilarious when she goes back to college. That must be enough, right? Wrong. Fat phobia is fundamentally built into our societal structures and sits on a foundation of racism and colonization that's the perfect base for privileging thinness. Fat phobia is built into our day-to-day lives, the clothes we wear, the healthcare we receive, the TV shows we watch, and it's going to take all of us unlearning our preconceptions, behaviors, and language to make space for all bodies in our world. Here's 51 ways to start. So, I mean, Joe, what does this paragraph say to you, this last part right here, where fat phobia is built into our day-to-day lives, the clothes we wear, the healthcare we receive, etc.?
I think that it makes a lot of assumptions. It makes assumptions that anybody that's not fat does not like people that are fat. Um, I don't care who it is. Anyone that I ever talk to, that I ever meet, have conversations with, I don't everybody's going to have a preconception, right? Just when you see a person, that's a normal human thing. Those are survival instincts. We have them for a reason. But when I actually start talking to somebody and I get to know them, that's where all my opinions are made. I'm not going to make an opinion on someone just based on how big or how small, tall, short, long hair, short hair, whatever that they are.
Yeah, and there's opinions based on how you look, no matter what you look like. For example, someone like me, when I was going through like high school and college, my hair is really, really short right now because I got a bad haircut. We won't talk about that. But I have short hair like this, or even a little bit shorter, and it kind of gave me like that military look. And a lot of like girls I would date would automatically assume, like in college, like if I tried talking to them, they would automatically assume that I was some jock, stuck up douchebag, and they just didn't want anything to do with me. So it's like whether you're overweight or in shape, like there are going to be things that people think before they get to know you, and it's our job as individuals to not be like that. And I think it applies to everything. And some things in here that bother me, Joe, like let's say the clothes we wear, the healthcare we receive. Well, usually when it comes to like the clothes we wear, unfortunately we live in a society that's driven by businesses, okay? And businesses need to cater towards the average person. So you might not always find something in your size if you're plus size, or even if you're really, really, really skinny, you might not find something in your size. If you're really, really tall, you won't find something in your size. If you're really short, you won't find something in your size at certain stores you go to. So that affects everyone, not just people who are a bit more overweight. And then when it comes to the health care we receive, I mean, health care, obviously everyone needs health care, but if you are more susceptible to diabetes or any other condition because you're overweight, it's just like someone who smokes. You might have a harder time getting health care if you tell them you've been smoking for 20 years. Like, it makes sense that you would have a hard time with certain things based on the evidence that we're talking about now.
Right. And I think that you put it very well there, especially when we were talking about, the decision to smoke cigarettes and the decision to overeat and not monitor what you're putting into your body as strictly as you could, right? I'm not saying, obviously to restrict yourself down to nothing and not to have any fun. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, they're both decisions. They both have outcomes, and those outcomes are going to determine what is available to you and what is not.
Correct. Well, so with that being said, let's jump into the 51 reasons. Some of these are a little hilarious, so I'm going to apologize now if I start to laugh. But, this isn't going to be like 51 things that Joe and I are going to bash. There's actually a lot of stuff in here that we both agree with, and we'll get to that. So, number one, learn to cope with the word fat. We fatties refer to ourselves in lots of different ways. Some people prefer plus size, bigger, curvy, or person of size. But plenty of us describes ourselves as fat and not depreciating. Person of size is my new, it's gonna be my new way. Are you a person of size? But I mean, I kind of like the first one. Learn to cope with the word fat, because like it said at the very top, a lot of people hear that word and they instantly they feel like it's a negative word. It's not. It's just a characteristic of what you look like, and I don't think we should be afraid to say that word. There are words we should be afraid to say, but that one isn't one of them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And actually, just to kind of keep that moving right along, the second part, it's the second question, or point. If someone refers to themselves as fat, don't fall over yourself trying to correct them. Instead, ask yourself why you've attached a negative value to the word. This is one of the assumptions that I'm talking about too, right? Is that the author of this article assumes that anybody who says the word fat or hears the word fat automatically assumes that there's something bad associated with it, and not everybody does. But I think that that's still a good point to make. If someone refers to them as fat and refers themselves as fat, and your first instinct is to say like, oh my gosh, no, like that's not what I meant, or anything like that, then maybe that should cause you to reevaluate. But I don't think that coming at it like this point is correct.
Yes, I agree. And then moving on to number 3, consider that we might actually like our bodies. Yes, really, imagine that. And For me, this rubs me the wrong way because, we talk a lot about obviously anabolic steroids and things on this channel, and we know how unhealthy anabolic steroids are. But, a lot of people want to look like that. And so you could say the same point here. Consider that we might actually like our bodies, really big and muscly. Yes, really, imagine that. It doesn't mean that it's healthy. Like, you can like the way you look, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy. And you take people who are competing in bodybuilding who look like Greek gods, but on the inside, their insides are falling apart. So we know they like how they look, but we can still say, hey man, you might not live as long if you don't stop doing that. And it applies to both ends of the spectrum. Ah, thank you, Gabe.
Seriously. Yeah, thank you so much, Gabe. And the next point actually has a lot in it that isn't necessarily great that I want to talk about.
It's
But
very loaded.
understand that diets don't work and that and are the evil child of capitalism and body shaming culture.
Oh my
Over
gosh.
95% of people who lose weight through dieting put the weight back on within 5 years. If diets work, the diet industry would be financially unsustainable.
Which is
Wow.
which is 100% not true on so many levels, but I'll let you take it from the top, Joe.
Okay. So the one thing about this sentence rant that I agree with is that diets don't work because when the word diet assumes that it's something that you're going to do for a finite amount of time, right? Now, if this sentence said understand that nutrition plans don't work, that would just be completely and totally false. Diet has a connotation to it that assumes that you are going to do this for a certain amount of time and then you are not going to do it. And what it does not do is teach you how to actually understand what you need nutritionally. And that's the big issue that I have with that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like any other subject, guys. Like, there are the quick ways to do it, which usually don't work out, and then there's actually learning the process. And I've seen videos before where people have talked from both ends of the spectrum, where someone who's really overweight is like, I watch what I eat. I have a green shake every morning. Like, and to someone like myself or to like Joe, where we understand the principles of health and fitness, we understand how to put together a proper meal plan. It's like, there's so much more that goes into eating healthy, where the reason why people put the weight back on is because they're looking for a quick fix. And then as soon as they're done with the quick fix, they go back to their regular habits. And it's almost like the definition of insanity. What they were doing before created this effect where they became overweight, and they think that after they diet, they can go back to that and they're not going to get overweight. So, like, yes, diets don't work, but if you know how to follow a structured meal plan, that does work, and it lasts forever because it becomes a part of your lifestyle. And then this part right here, if diets work, the diet industry would be financially unstable. That's like saying, if people went to gyms and got in shape, then they would just quit the gym because they're already in shape. Like, there's so many companies that sell healthy food. Like, the whole supplement industry is not full of just like powdered protein shakes. There's like all sorts of healthy food that are contained in this industry that you can buy. Maybe something like Weight Watchers would go out of business if people actually learned that that's not the end all. Like, unless you're buying their food all the time, you can't exactly go out on vacation or do your own thing. Like, and it's a point. Like, we don't. I don't want to get into like what actually Weight Watchers is, but like, it's not teaching you like how to go home and cook in bulk, like chicken, brown rice, and vegetables, and all these things.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the that's the big thing about it is that this article assumes that the fitness industry is like evil and awful, and that's not how it works. At least not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I mean, there
Um,
obviously are some evils, as there are everywhere, but not here.
seriously.
Well, so
And
let's.
then,
The next one
oh,
kind
go
of
ahead.
goes into it. It says, learn about the damage that yo-yo dieting does to the body. Here's the Cliff Notes version. It does more damage than happily staying the size you are. And I feel like that is just such a bad negative thing to say, because she's basically just saying, don't even try to do a diet because you're just gonna gain it all back and you're gonna get depressed and you're gonna be much worse than we were when you started the diet to begin with. My solution to here is learn that yo-yo diets are a quick fix. And an average diet is a quick fix, like we just talked about. But so maybe instead of doing that, put some actual effort into learning how to eat properly.
Seriously. And that's the big thing about it. I when I was trying to lose weight the first time, I tried to do, a couple of diets, right? There was like that military diet that was going around the internet for a while that was, eat an Oreo, a hot dog, and a half a scoop of tuna, and you'll lose a ton of weight. Um,
Oh
and,
my
and
god.
like I literally tried that for a day, and then I was like, you know what? No, we're out. See ya. Um, and that, but at the same time, I was not in a good place mentally, so I just said, screw it. I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna do. And I think that what this article is coming at is that if you're happy where you are, you don't need to do anything else. But getting to somewhere else can make you happy.
I like that. Why don't you move on to number 6? We got a lot to go, so let's try to go through these a little faster, I guess.
Yeah, we could sit here and talk about every single one of them, but
Yeah.
but this stop talking about your diet. If you want to lose weight, fine, you do you, but understand how damaging it is for us to constantly hear how unwanted and unacceptable fat bodies are. And I think that anybody that's talking about their nutrition plan is not specifically saying that fat bodies are undesirable. They are saying that they want to take care of themselves.
Dude, that's like me talking about, like, so guys, I just upgraded my Camaro, right? My Camaro has like 700 horsepower now. That's like me talking about that, and then Joe being like, well, I drive a truck and it's not as fast, so stop talking about your stupid car. Like, if
You're making me feel like the truck doesn't matter.
yeah, making you feel like your truck doesn't matter. If someone's talking about their diet, it's because they're excited. Maybe they're journeying into fitness and they're really excited about making a change. And if they're talking about their diet to you, it's probably because you're their friend or a coworker who maybe they think you're like. You're not just gonna go up to a stranger and be like, "Hey, I'm on a diet and it's really great," and blah blah blah. Like, if you're talking to your friends or family about your diet and they get upset, to me that just says that maybe they know that they should be on a diet as well or learning how to take care of themselves, but they just don't want to do it. Or else, just like the word fat, like if someone says the word fat and you get upset, it's because you have a negative kind of negative association with that word. Same thing about diet. If someone starts talking about their diet and you get upset, I just think that it's because internally you want to make a change, but maybe you don't know how to.
Pretty much. And I think that Anthony's in here, and he just made a really great point. If people are talking about their diet and they're talking about their goals, they're excited and they want to share that with you.
Yeah, and they should be allowed to, is my opinion. Number 7, more specifically, stop. This goes along with number 6. More specifically, stop talking about your diet at meal times. It can take years to detach the feeling of shame from food, and hearing people talk about sins, cheating, and naughty food while we're literally trying to eat can be massively triggering. Yeah, and I mean, I can understand, like there's a difference between talking about your diet and being excited about it and then talking about it all the time, which is exhausting. Like, guys, I barely ever talk about fitness outside of the gym because I just don't want to hear it because to me, it's exhausting. So I can agree with this point. Like, okay, we know you're on a diet. Every single time we sit down to eat, I don't need to hear you talking about it. Like, yeah. I only can have salmon and then a little bit of rice because I'm so close to hitting my macros for the day, and I don't want to go over my macros because if I go over my macros, I'm gonna have to change my whole meal plan tomorrow. Like, yeah, I would want to blow my brains out too if I had to listen to that all the time. So I can agree with number 7.
Right. And then right into number 8, refrain from giving a fat person unsolicited advice about weight loss. Even if it totally worked for you, even if you think you're being helpful, even if that person is related to you, stop this. This is something that I actually kind of disagree with. And this is something that I can relate to on a personal note. So like I said, growing up, I had a whole lot of things going on in my family. My father was very overweight. It actually caused my parents to split up because he would not do anything about it. And if I had known then what I knew now, I sure as hell would have given my dad all of the advice that he did not want about how to lose weight because I care about him. If someone's giving you advice about how to lose weight, it might be like this is the part where it doesn't assume any sort of positive intent. They could be concerned about you and they want to help you, and that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just like anything else in life, Joe, if I saw you like deadlifting the wrong way and you're about to snap your back in half, I would walk over and be like, "Hey, man, like this worked for me, and now I deadlift properly." Like, it's just because there's such a negative association with being overweight and eating incorrectly that when people try to talk about it or help about it, you automatically think they're maybe coming from a judgy or negative place, when in reality, you're just trying to help that person. Well, obviously some people are judgy and negative. I'm not going to obviously say that not everyone's coming from a good place, but I would be coming from a good place. Joe would be coming from a good place. So I understand that totally, Joe, and that's really nice of you to share that with us. Like, that was a nice personal thing I think that others can relate to.
Right. And oh, go ahead.
So number 9, don't call yourself fat if you're widely considered to be slim or average sized by most people. I feel so fat today is not equal to living in a fat body every day. I mean, this is just like, just putting it there to put it there. I say I feel fat today all the time, especially after eating a huge meal that I probably shouldn't have had, or if I splurge on macaroons or candies or things I shouldn't. Like, this is just her getting upset of somebody who is not, I guess, overweight every day, saying I feel like, come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's like
And then,
triggered. Yeah, this is like a triggering thing for the author specifically, in my opinion.
yeah, I think that that's where a lot of it's coming from. But moving right along, if you want to compliment a fat person on what they're wearing, avoid saying it's flattering. Flattering means your clothes are hiding the bit of your body that society doesn't like. Just tell them they look great. I'm going to say yes and no to this one. I mean, you can just tell someone that they look great, but I think that saying that something that someone is wearing is flattering means that it complements their good parts too. But that's just me.
Yeah, I feel like it goes both ways. But if I really think about it, I would never say to like a pretty girl or my wife, like, "Hey, that dress is flattering." I'd be like, "You look hot. You look great." And I feel like in most instances, that's what people would say. Like, I mean, how often have you told your wife that she looks flattering, Joe? Let's be honest. She'd probably be like, "Excuse me,
What does that? What does that even mean?
yeah, like you don't think it looks absolutely amazing. You think it's flattering." So I can agree with
Right.
number 10. Number 10, that would trigger me as well. Like, oh, it looks flattering. Like, that's like probably the out of the if you had like a list of compliments, it's probably like the one at the bottom that you could give. It's like calling a woman handsome. Like, you look very handsome. It's a nice thing to say, but you're probably not going to get very far calling women handsome. Number 11. Watch out for pity in your response to fat people. We don't need your pity. We need your acceptance and your action to help other thin people get there too. Um, Watch out for pity. I mean, I don't really know how to relate to this one. I guess when if you're talking to someone who's overweight, if you're trying to instantly feel bad for them. I've never really done this before, so I guess I don't know any real life examples of this. Joe, do you? I mean, what would be a real life
I mean,
example?
I like I've never personally experienced the real life example part of this, but I've had some people ask me like just in the chat just a couple of minutes ago, people were asking how much weight that I've lost, total, and I think that if if somebody asked me that question, I said, well, I've lost almost 100 pounds. They'd be like, oh my god, you were 100 pounds heavier than you are now. Like,
Okay, that I get it now. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah, that would get annoying.
yeah.
Well, some
I
people,
actually I
but to
agree with
some,
that one almost entirely.
and I could see though how to some people that would be empowering because they're getting almost like praise, like, oh my god, 100 pounds, like that's amazing. Like, I can see where it would go both ways for sure. Why don't we
Right.
move into number 12?
So number 12 is stop fetishizing fat bodies. Don't expect fat folk to be grateful because you deem them fuckable. We're people.
I mean, there's fetishes for everything. I mean, you can't really get upset if someone has a. Some people have some fetishes for some really weird stuff. Some people like feet. Some people like fat bodies. Some people like skinny. Some people like some things you probably can't talk about on the stream. I think that's just like a triggered thing for her. I mean, there's
Yeah.
what was it? Tosh.0. There was a woman who just sits on people. That's like her thing. Some like little dudes like to have this woman. She's like 7 feet tall. Sit on them. I mean, she's doing it. She's getting paid for it. She likes it. It's her decision.
Yep. So just kind of moving right along. Don't desexualize us either. Fat people are plenty hot and having great sex. Thank you very much. All shapes and sizes of people have sex. There's nothing that you can do about that, and it's weird and telling if you're put out by it.
Yeah, I mean, I never really imagined a world where overweight people couldn't have sex and enjoy it, so I can't really relate to number 13 at all, or begin to yeah, maybe there's obviously people out there who are gonna like say, oh, you fat cow, like you'll never get laid. I could understand that, which is a very disgusting thing to say.
Right.
But this one is probably something that would be more understandable to someone who maybe is a little bit more overweight and they hear some nasty things like that being said, for which I just want to say that's terrible and I would never say that. Like that's disgusting to say stuff like that.
Right. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I'll take the next one. Understand that fat women get harassed and assaulted too, even if fat bodies don't do it for you. Remember that sexual assault is about power, not attraction. The fear of being ridiculed or disbelieved for speaking out about assault is often heightened for fat women. I can agree with this. I mean, obviously, no matter what you look like or who you are, you can get assaulted or harassed. Like, it happens all the time to everyone. I don't think we really live in a society where people actually think, like, oh, you're overweight, so you never get assaulted or catcalled or anything like that. I just think that that's... maybe some people aren't aware of it, but I feel like everyone knows, like, no matter what you look like or what you do, like, you can get harassed. Let's move on to number 15.
Remember that eating disorders affect fat people too. That is 100% true, and I think that this is actually kind of a contradictory point on the list, because fat people being affected by eating disorders come about because someone is not happy with the way that they look, so they are either eating their feelings or they are not eating because they don't like how they are.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Because if we put this on people who are anorexic or bulimic, like they have an eating disorder which makes them super skinny, and it would be totally okay to be like, hey, you're really skinny. You have, we need to get some help for you. But it's almost like in the same article. Remember that eating disorders affect fat people too, but then she's also saying like, don't tell us to lose weight. So it's almost like she's admitting that some people who are overweight have an eating disorder, but we're not allowed to tell them that. We have to just accept them. And I don't like that.
Right. Understand that fat and unhealthy are not the same thing. That's a loaded one.
Yeah, it's very loaded.
Because, and like again, this is something that I can talk about myself, because I was there. I've had it happen to me. Like, I was fat. I had a whole lot of problems. I had like wicked bad acid reflux. My joints were in constant pain. Like my right leg would fall entirely asleep if I was sitting down for too long. Like it was bad. Like, I went to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack, and it turned out to be like just super, super severe acid reflux and heartburn.
Really? Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, also, guys, keep in mind that internally, and I feel like this article doesn't really address like the internal things that are happening internally. As a male, we have a lot of male viewers here. As a male, the more body fat you carry, the lower your testosterone is, and the higher your estrogen levels are. So, like right there, if you're trying to get in shape, you'll have a much harder time doing so. Or even if you're trying to maintain. It's like a downward spiral, because if you keep putting on weight and you keep lowering your testosterone and slowly raising your estrogen levels, it's like you're just basically on a cycle where you will keep putting on weight every single year. And that's why after 10, 15, 20 years, maybe it's 5 to 8 pounds a year, but multiply that by 20 years, it's a lot of extra weight on your body, and it just continually gets worse. So number 16, I don't think this really takes into consideration, what's going on the inside, and I feel like that's a really missed opportunity here for this article to kind of like maybe really expand on their own point of understanding that fat and unhealthy are not the same thing, because they kind of are. Like, it gets to a point, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out where that line is blurred and where it's solid, and this is kind of one of those things where there is a point where it becomes unhealthy.
Right. And then number 17, stop commenting on others' weight under the guise of concern about their medical health. Are you my doctor? No, your opinion isn't necessary here. And I think that with this one, like if you're someone that's in my life, that's because I want you here. And if I'm concerned about you from like a health standpoint, right? Like I'm a certified personal trainer. I've been at the other end. I've been at the obese level. I know how it feels, how it doesn't feel, and what is and isn't healthy. I'm gonna say something to you about it because I care about you.
And this kind of relates to her original point that don't associate fat with negativity, but it's almost like as soon as someone, if her significant other said, "Hey, maybe you should lose some weight. I'm here to help you." It's like they're automatically assuming it's coming from a negative place, and that's not good. Because in
Yeah.
my opinion, it's not. It's coming from a healthy place. It's coming like you said. Hey, I really like you being alive in my life. I like that we can walk down the street together. I like that we can go hiking sometimes. I like that we can go to Disneyland and ride the rides and walk around all day and not have to sit on a park bench every 30 minutes because our legs hurt. Like, there's a lot of added benefits to being a bit more active, a bit more healthy. So yeah, let's move on to number 19. If you care that much about what other people eat, donate your time and money to organizations that campaign for affordable, nutritional food in poor communities. She's just deflecting. Like, hey, you
Yeah.
shouldn't eat that like double cheeseburger with extra mayonnaise. Like, don't tell me what to eat. That's just a deflecting point right there. Let's move on to number 20.
Critically examine the information you're given about fatness, investigate who is sharing the material, and question what they might have to gain from it. I mean, that's something that you should do with any piece of
Yeah,
information that you come
yeah.
across anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're telling you, that you're overweight due to X, Y, and Z, and then they're trying to sell you a weight loss pill, like, yeah, obviously. I mean, anything you guys read or watch on a video, if you're gonna take it to heart, you should definitely be doing your own research.
Absolutely. And then 21, erase the words obesity epidemic from your vocabulary. Demonetization of fat bodies is a classic scapegoating tool employed by the governments. When they talk about the obesity epidemic, they're using coded language to get you to blame systematic societal problems, poverty, crime, climate change on poor communities and communities of color, but you're smarter than that. I don't even know where a lot of that came from.
Dude, when I read this one, I was like, I had to like pull over and read it to my wife. Like, I had to be like, what is like this? This is like those smoking commercials where they're like, oh, they purposely sell cigarettes in poor communities. No, it's because like it's a business. That's where they get most people buy them. They don't care if it's bad for their health. Like it's terrible to say, but it's like no one's forcing you to buy cigarettes. You know they will kill you, but yet you still buy them. Like it's I just yeah, this is a very loaded. This is a very loaded. This is coming from a very political. I think
Negative
yeah,
place.
political negative places. Like come on. When they talk about the obesity epidemic, they're using coded language. I mean, oh, I know what I wanted to say about this. The obesity epidemic is real. And I know it's real because when I leave my house and I go to the mall and I see at least 5 to 10 kids under the age of 10 that are 40 to 50 pounds overweight, I feel like that constitutes the belief that there may be an obesity epidemic here. And it's terrible because those kids don't really have a choice. They don't know better. And I can't help but feeling sorry for them because I know unless they make a change on their own, it's just going to continually get worse.
Right. And I think that, that starts pretty early, unfortunately, and nobody should be going into high school with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Number 22, learn about how the medical community treats fat bodies. As one example of very many fat people are routinely denied kidney transplants unless they lose weight, even though they experience the same level of success with a donor kidney as thin people do. We are constantly disbelieved and misdiagnosed because doctors cannot see past our fatness. We are often denied health insurance. I feel like this is a very loaded question as well because, like I said, like we're trying to find common ground. We're trying to figure out where the line is between body positive and being unhealthy. And when it comes to donating a kidney, like you can't just sign up on the donor list for a kidney and get one the next day. Some people wait months, some people wait years to get a kidney. And unfortunately, the hospital is only going to give kidneys to people who they think are actually going to survive the surgery because your body isn't always going to be accepting of an organ from someone else. Like it's even if it's the right match, it's not always going to be accepted. So they have to make sure that they're giving kidneys to people. Like, if you're extremely overweight, okay, and you have some other health issues going on related to you being overweight, maybe your heart can't handle you're trying to bring a new organ in and accept it. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that happen. I'm sure there are doctors who are corrupt, that would use as an excuse, even though it could happen, it could work for you. But I just don't like how this point tries to like make it seem like every single doctor, if you're slightly overweight, they're not going to give you a kidney. Like, yes, I'm sure there's corrupt doctors, but at the same time, your body has to be able to be healthy enough to take the new organ in and then make it usable.
Right. And just something to tack onto that too. Usually when an organ transplant of any kind, right? So a pancreas, kidney, lung, anything like that, the medication that they probably have to put you on to make sure that your body accepts the new organ is going to cause you to gain weight. So if you're already overweight and then this is going to cause you to gain more weight, it's just going to compound your issues.
Correct. And to say like that's a very like big term to use, to say we are often denied health insurance. It's like she is the spokesperson for every single overweight person in the world. Like, there are varying degrees of being overweight, and unfortunately, like, insurance companies, it's a business. They're not going to insure my 600-pound life because they know they're automatically going to have to pay out at some point. Like, it sucks, but it's because it's a business, and they're in business to make money, not just hand out money to every single person who wants insurance. And I'm not saying that coming from a mean place. I'm just trying to explain like why some people might be denied. And it's because health insurance companies are businesses. Just like if you're trying to get car insurance, but you've already totaled 6 cars and you're 18 years old. You can get car insurance, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. Like, it's
right.
You need to learn to detach your feelings about how you feel about being overweight, and just kind of apply common sense and rationality to it, and then you can start to understand more of these topics.
Exactly.
And this one right here, Joe, while you're at it, read up on how BMI has widely debunked as an inaccurate and misleading measure for health. I mean, this goes across the board, whether you're super obese or super in shape. Like, you can be super muscular and really short, and your BMI will say you're overweight. Like, this is just kind of like, a lot of her points, it's not really 51 reasons. It's more like 25 reasons. And then the following reason after each reason is like an excuse to justify the reason she gave for some of these. Why don't you read number 24?
If you're a doctor, stop prescribing weight loss as a remedy. Got depression, try losing some weight, heartburn, go on a diet, broken toe, maybe cut down on the takeout. Come on, this is ridiculous. Do your job better. A lot of the issues that I had when I was overweight are pretty much gone now. I'm just saying.
I mean, Joe, try losing some weight, heartburn, go on a diet, then broken toe. Because a broken toe is going to be diagnosed by a doctor to forget. Like, what point is she making here? And it is proven that if you exercise regularly, it will enhance your mood. You will feel happier. You will have more energy. So, like, this is such a bad reason here, Joe, that I can't even believe she had the balls to put it here.
Seriously. I mean, like, doctors, they go to high school, they go to college, and then they go to 10 years of middle school after that. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like, I've had a lot of clients growing up that were depressed. And as soon as they started exercising, it not only makes you feel better internally, which helps with your mood, but once you start seeing progress in the mirror, it does make you feel better. There is visual satisfaction that goes with it. And I just want to give a quick example that, her relating this to a broken toe. So I have a younger brother. When he was like 14, my parents had him see like a psychiatrist because they thought that he was depressed, where in reality he was just very introverted and liked to play video games in his room, which is exactly how I was. So, they just took him to a therapist just to make sure everything was okay. And the therapist like wanted to put him on all this depression medication and wanted to put him on all these different pills, and said that he was sad and all these things. He's not sad, like, so far from it. My brother was like top 100 in Call of Duty in the world. Like, he's just a good gamer. That's what he likes to do, right? So once I found that out, I went home, and this was when I was in college, and I took all the medication that she was prescribing him, and I threw it in the trash. And I said to him, I said, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need this medication. You're a good kid. You're a happy kid. You play with your friends. You go outside. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. And so I had it out with the psychiatrist the next time she came over because she was pissed. I threw the medication away. And she said to me, she goes, oh, yeah? She goes, you don't believe my diagnosis? I'm like, no, because you have a degree in opinions. And she goes, oh, well, what if you went to the hospital and the doctor said that your brother had a broken arm? You wouldn't believe him? I said, well, I'm pretty sure the doctor would show me the x-ray of the broken arm. Like, and that's basically what she's doing here. She's comparing, got depression, try losing some weight, which is right, to a broken toe, which can be proven if a toe's broken or not. It just blows my mind.
Seriously. So number 25, learn to criticize people without referencing their weight. There are enough, and then she goes political with it. There are enough things to criticize Trump for without bringing his body into it. Making jokes about his weight just doesn't hurt him. It hurts the nice, everyday fat person that's just trying to get on with their life.
I don't even know why Trump isn't, why are we bringing Trump into this conversation? And we're not going to talk politics on this podcast, guys. This isn't what this podcast is for. We're not, whether you like him or don't like him, we don't care. But the fact that she brought Trump into this, what the hell? This is ridiculous.
And just to say, she brought Trump into it, low-key calling him fat. Just saying.
Yeah, so she's... Yeah, I don't even want to touch that because it's just...
Yeah, we're going to get away from there,
We're going to get away from that, but just know that's not really a point. That's just her kind of lashing out because she hates Trump. At first, I want to say Michael Nadine, thank you so much for the donation. Michael says, I never ran before in my life, and I've never done it again, but I did for 1 year during depression, 1 mile every day. 24 is absolutely awful. Whoa, Michael. That was pretty good, man. I would love for you, I guess we can talk about this later, but if you're still having depression, maybe start off with some walking if you don't like running, and then get back into it, and we can help you even more with that. But we'll talk more questions at the end of the live stream.
Right.
let's get away from number 25 before everyone starts killing each other over politics.
Yeah. So 26, make sure your allyship extends to all fat people, not just small fat folks, not just white fat folks, not just able-bodied fat folks. Okay.
Okay. I didn't know that I was you could be fat, racist, fat racist, fattest. I don't know. That's a loaded question. Come on now. That's just a little ridiculous, number 26. Number 27. And you'll notice, I think she had her best points maybe in the beginning, and then it gets a little crazy.
Yeah.
This really pissed me off, guys. Know that skinny shaming is not a thing. Ridiculing someone for being too slim is unacceptable, but it comes from a very, very different place than fat phobia. She's already talked about how eating disorders can affect fat people as well. But every time, skinny is brought up or eating disorder is brought up, it's it's not okay for someone who's skinny. Skinny shaming is a thing. My sister, growing up, was told all the time that she needed to eat food. She was too skinny. She was too thin. My sister would eat just as much food as me. She was just genetically, naturally skinny all the time. And she would get very upset when people would tell her, you need to eat food, because just like if you're fat and every day you're told you're fat, if you're skinny and every day someone's telling you to eat, you're going to get pissed off. So it is a thing. And this is where the article for me starts to show me that she's coming from a place where she's not really trying to make us accepting or stop this fat phobia. She's trying to just prove her point and then kind of make skinny people she doesn't like how the same associations that are associated with being overweight can also be associated with being skinny or having some sort of eating condition that makes you super skinny, like anorexia or bulimia.
Right. So number 28, understand the links between capitalism and fat phobia. For instance, the companies that profit from the hard marketing of indulgent food at Christmas are often the same ones selling diet products in the new year. It's business.
Yeah, here's the thing, Joe. Do you buy a lot of indulgent food at Christmas? Because I do. And I
do too.
And I look great. I just don't buy 30 times more than what I should be eating. It's almost like number 28 is trying to say that you should have zero self-control If you go to the store and a company wants to sell you 30 boxes of brownies, you best damn buy them, and then it's their fault that you ate them all. I don't like number
Right.
28. That one's a little ridiculous.
Me either.
Number 29. Sometimes you're going to sit next to a fat person on a plane. You'll cope. I can guarantee that person is far more physically uncomfortable than you are. And this is one that I really wanted to talk about because this one bothers me a lot, and I will explain to you why. This statement right here, Joe, is basically her being like, I'm getting on the plane, I'm super overweight. The person to my right and person to my left, go screw yourselves and deal with me. And I don't like that mentality. There are
Right.
there are bigger people in this world. But what you have to understand, and like this is not coming from a biased place. This is not coming from a judging place. This is kind of what it's like, guys. Businesses need to make money. Okay, so an airplane needs to make sure they're filling every single plane with as many people as they can to make the most amount of money per flight. It's just business. Seats are designed for like the average person. So if you're really overweight, you might have a hard time sitting in one seat. If you're really tall and skinny, but 7 feet tall, chances are you're probably going to be very uncomfortable on a plane. If you're really short, you're probably going to have the best seat in the house because you'll be able to just chill the whole time. But it's like, if you're paying the same money for a seat and then someone who is really, really, really overweight sits next to you and their arms are spread out like this and their legs are spread out and now they're uncomfortable in their seat, but now you're also uncomfortable in your seat that you can't even fully utilize because you're kind of like crouched like this in the corner against the window. Like, this is a very loaded question for me because, I feel like no matter how accepting you are as a person, okay, I'm very accepting. Joe's very accepting. We're both personal trainers. Like, we don't judge based on looks. We just want to help every single person that wants the help. But
Right.
I don't think any single person in this chat can tell me that if they're on a plane and someone who was very much plus size sat next to them and they were forced, like on a 10-hour flight, to be curled in a ball, like trying to get some room, that they would be okay with that.
Right. I mean, you could even like take this the other way too, right? Let's say that somebody is sitting in the middle seat, right? And then before you even go to sit down, they're sitting sideways. They've got their legs up and over the side, and they just leave their feet there the whole time. It's the same thing. You're not going to be happy about that because there's somebody else in the space, and somebody else in the chat said it. I forget what their name was, but that space that you paid for, and if somebody else is in that space, you're not getting your money's worth.
Yeah, and I like Get Real Please. He says, big people are forced to buy 2 seats. I'm a little insulted that people think that I'm going to spread my legs and hands around. I hate being on planes. I try to take as little space as possible. And, Get Real Please, we're not saying this happens all the time. In fact, I've sat next to people who are twice my size, and I've never had an issue. It's very rare, in my opinion. Maybe I should have started the conversation off by saying it's very rare that a big person is going to sit next to you and take up your space. It does happen. It's never happened to me personally. It has happened to my wife once or twice, and she told me she's basically stuck like this the whole time. But I know for the most part, people try to respect each other's space, especially on airplanes. So I feel like number 29, that's kind of like a minority of people. Like, number 29 kind of rides the cusp of where we divide that line between being body positive and being a certain size versus being like obese and taking up, enough space for 2 people. And someone else said something funny. They said, hold on. Diego Explorer, if a really overweight guy sits next to me, I'm just going to lay my head on his chest and fall asleep. Squatters' rights. And I just think that's all. I can just see, like, you being like, bro, new friend. Gonna make a new friend. So,
All right.
what is this that I never had to... Yeah, so, I mean... we do have some people watching this podcast who might be big people who are very respectful, and I want to make it very clear that, to me at least, this is a minority. Like, this has never happened to me, but I know it does happen, and I know that the people who this does happen to get very frustrated. But I do want to make it very clear that I know it's also the minority of time. I know people who, men and women who know they take up a lot of space in a seat on places like buses and airplanes, they usually try to be very respectful of others. So I just want to throw that out there.
Right. So I think that we can just kind of lump number 30 into what we just talked about, because it's really very much the same, talking about the pain that fat people experience on planes, roller coasters, theater seats, massage tables. Like all of those things come from businesses that market toward the average. And if you are on either side of that average, it's not gonna work for anybody.
Well, just like we talked about that article that I read, Joe, before I came down here, about
Yeah.
that woman who was pissed that she couldn't ride the Harry Potter ride. Even, and like there was this article, guys, that we read where this woman, she starts off the article talking about how she's the biggest Harry Potter fan there ever is, and she buys all the toys and the merchandise. She read all the books, saw all the movies. And then she starts telling you how she's this like huge Harry Potter fan, and that how she was so angry that even though one of her friends, who was also very overweight, told her she wouldn't be able to ride the Harry Potter ride because they're the same size and the seats won't fit, she talks about how she was so disgusted and appalled that she couldn't ride the Harry Potter ride even though she was a huge fan. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with like amusement theme park rides are made for the average person, and it's for your own. If you don't fit on a ride, it's for your own safety that you don't ride it. Actually, Joe, my new workout partner, I used to work at Universal, and he told me, he's like, people who were a little too big for rides, they would ask if they can see if it'll fit, and he would be like, is it worth risking your life to ride this ride? Because I'll see if you'll fit. And he told me how sometimes people that were a little on the heavy side would get in the seats, and they would get like two dudes, and they would pull that roller coaster seat down, and if it clicked 3 times, you were good to go. So they do their best to accommodate, but they can only accommodate for so much. Just like someone who's 8 feet tall probably can't ride certain roller coasters because they won't fit, or they'll get decapitated, like going on a loop-de-loop or something. Like,
It's safety at that point.
yeah, look, yeah, Jeff Luffenberg. Look at LeBron James trying to ride rides at Cedar Point, Ohio. It's not made for him. Look at Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal has any sports car Shaquille O'Neal has was custom made for him because he is so big and tall. It's not like the Lamborghini industry is shaming fat people. You just won't fit because the car is not designed for that.
Right.
Let's move on.
Right. Okay. So 31. Also, make sure your guest towels are the biggest size they have in the shop. Don't make me scoot around your house in a towel that leaves me half naked.
First of all, why wouldn't you just put your clothes on in the bathroom? Is what I want to know.
I mean, there's that. I mean, if I'm gonna go stay somewhere, like when I come down in October, I'm probably gonna bring a towel. You know what I mean? Just because I don't want to make you have to do a whole bunch of laundry.
I'll make sure I have towels for you. I mean, number 31, that's just kind of like a personal trigger point for the author, in my belief. Big towels take up a lot of space, and if you want to have a nice, modern-looking bathroom, you should buy towels that you like. They could be really big. Maybe you like really big towels, or they could be kind of small. Like, even normal, well, I hate to say the word normal. We'll say average size people might buy towels that are small that don't even really fit them properly because they like how it looks hanging on the wall. Like, that's just something that triggers the author. This one really got me. Number 33, learn about the pay gap and employment bias faced by fat people. Yes, this is a very real thing. I don't agree with this. In this day and age, any single person that who educates themselves, who is an outgoing, who applies themselves, can accomplish anything in the United States of America. Like,
Right.
Let's take YouTube, for example. There's a lot of really overweight people with YouTube channels making a lot of money. When YouTube first came out, one of the first makeup channels to ever get signed by Sephora was a woman who was overweight. Like, this is, where is this number 33 coming from, Joe? This kind of sounds like...
So So okay, so my like I said, my dad was really overweight. He did a lot of manual labor, and there was no the only employment gap was okay. We understand that you can't get down on the floor and back up as fast as someone that is not overweight can. You know what I mean? But like that's for specific stuff. If like you gotta know what you're getting into. If you go for a job that involves getting underneath a car or something like that, you need to be able to fit underneath the car. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe if you're in a construction world and you're not you don't move as fast because you're overweight, then yeah, chances are that you're not going to be promoted, you're not going to be hired for extra hours because the boss wants somebody who can handle the workload. So again, that's just a trigger point for the author. It's not. I don't think it's a real thing that applies to every single person. And I do agree with number 34. Stop assuming that fat people are lazy. Catch yourself when that bias creeps into your mind. I know lots of people that are overweight that are like on the ball even more than I am. So number 34 never crossed my mind.
Right. Number 35, put your money into art that showcases fat people as romantic leads. Hamilton, London, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the upcoming remake of Little Hush Up of Horrors have managed it, and many more should take their lead and be supported by audiences when they do. Now, while I think that everybody should be represented in the sphere of art in general, I don't just like anything else, right? Like if you have a piece of work or a piece of art that is written in a specific way, you should not be forced to change it as the artist to represent someone that was not an original part of that medium, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And when I go see movies, I go see movies that are based on things that I like. I'm not necessarily looking for a lead who looks a certain way. Obviously, if there's a woman lead that fits the I don't want to I fits the criteria of what I'm attracted to, then I'm more than likely gonna go see that movie. But so every movie that has a male lead, does it mean that I'm attracted to that male? No, I'm attracted to the actor himself. I like their work. She brought up Melissa McCarthy earlier, and I love her movies. I think that she's great. I think she does an amazing job. She's super funny. I laugh my butt off every movie I watch from her. But again, I feel like this has more to do with like industry standards. It has more to do with like business. People Hollywood is gonna put people in roles based on not even necessarily how they look nowadays. It's gonna be based on like their following and how popular they are. I think back in the day, this point had more validity because everything was about exactly how you look. But we live in a society today where, yeah, looks are obviously still very important. But if you have a huge following and people that support you, you're gonna get a movie. You're gonna get a lot of opportunities sent your way. So I feel like this does exist, but not to the degree that she tries to make it out to be.
Right. Number 36, call out your favorite authors when they only write about fat characters as a shortcut to make you dislike them. I'm looking at you, J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I mean, I'm just gonna move on from that one. That one that's just kind of like I said. This is a loaded response to her own point before it. So we'll move on. Call out your favorite comedian when they resort to fat phobic jokes. That's ridiculous. Like comedians they make fun of everything. It's like so every time a comedian makes a joke about going to the gym, like Kevin Hart, he does his joke where he like talks to the guy and he's like, he goes, "Why are you still lifting weights? You're done. You've lifted all the weights." Like, am I supposed to get upset about that because I go to the gym? Like, come on, give me a break.
Seriously. And actors wearing fat suits for comedy effect? Absolutely no. I think that actually kind of relates to what we were talking about before. If an actor has a following, it doesn't matter what they look like if they have the following that the studio wants to attract for a specific role. That's
Yeah,
just
I mean, like we got movies like The Nutty Professor. The Nutty
right.
Professor is one of the funniest movies of its time, and it couldn't be done without. I mean, yeah, it obviously goes with a lot of stereotypes of what being overweight is, and probably puts maybe a negative feel on it by today's standards. It is a funny movie.
Oh, seriously, but like what was Eddie Murphy supposed to gain, 80, 120 pounds or whatever just to do the role?
Correct. I think
So
I think that's a little ridiculous.
Uh, 39, read critical thinking about fatness by fat writers. Kat Powers, Kivian Bay, Roxanne Gay, Sophie Hagen, these people and loads more do great work pulling apart the common misconceptions about fatness. They're not just doing work for fat folks, then people need to read it too.
I mean, you read what you like at the end of the
Exactly.
day. Like, you can't really start to force your opinions and beliefs on people. You can make suggestions, but like, I don't need to read a book about critical thinking about fatness by fat writers to understand that I shouldn't shame people who look different than me. That's a little ridiculous.
Right. I mean, how about we just treat each other with decency and call it a day?
Yeah, like, why don't
For,
we treat everybody around us with decency and respect, and call it a day, like you just said.
yeah, I think that that's really all that is necessary.
Fund critical analysis through Patreon, crowdfunding sites, and direct donations to research institutes. There are hardly any cash in fat research. I wonder why. Uh, I mean, because there's lots of cash into fat research. It's called the fitness industry.
Right.
Like, come on. What is that? Like, what? Like, does number 40 say that we should literally be putting money into trying to find reasons that being 300 pounds overweight is a good thing? Like, again, where is that line being drawn between body positive and there's a problem? What do you think, Joe?
Right. So let me I have to ask this question. What institution is going to fund a study that looks for the benefits of type 2 diabetes, critical heart conditions, and containing way more fat cells than your body is supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one's a little ridiculous, and I feel like they get a little ridiculous as we get to the end of this right here. Number 41. Oh yeah, never forget that fat phobia has its roots in racism and white supremacy. This is where it gets really crazy, guys. In the early 1800s, colonialist scientists used fatness as one of the markers for social hierarchies, with fatness as one of the uncivilized characteristics attributed to the black and indigenous people placed at the bottom of the scale. Anybody can go online right now and look up our history and actually see that back in the day, if you were overweight, it was actually a sign of being very prosperous and very rich, because you didn't have to do anything because you were rich. Basically, is what it comes down to. Like, go look at paintings in the Louvre. Like, a lot of the most famous paintings have people in them that aren't ripped and shredded. They're actually a little bit on the fat side because if you were a king or a queen, all you did was rule and eat. Like, I mean, you had other jobs too, but it was a way to show off that you were rich.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think that nothing else really needs to be said there.
yeah. Like, I was
40,
actually, I was just watching.
go for it.
Sorry, I was just watching a special last night on the pyramids in Egypt, and they were talking about how the architect of the Egyptian pyramid was really fat, and there's statues showing him being really fat and having, like, fat male breasts, man boobs, and it was because they wanted to show that to show how great he was. So yeah, we'll move on.
42, if you have children, be cognizant of how you talk about food around them. Many women in particular cite comments from their mothers as instigating factors in their shame around food. Teach your kids that their and others' bodies aren't something to apologize for. I think that the first sentence was probably the best part of that. I think that instructing your kids about nutrition and food early is definitely important.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you shouldn't be afraid to show your kids how to eat properly, and you shouldn't be scolded for it either. Obviously, if you're just going in your kid's room and you're like taking potato chips out from under their bed and saying this is why you're fat and like punching them in the face for it, that's probably not the right approach. But if you sit down with your kids and you try to educate them on why they should eat a certain way and that it's okay to eat junk, but only as a treat later in the day, I mean, there's a huge difference in parenting. There's two total different sides to the scale. And like, when I was a kid, I could only have soda on Friday nights. It was a treat. Now, when kids scream and misbehave, they get whatever they want. So, is it really talking to your kids about eating that's the problem, or just being a good parent overall and not letting your kids do whatever they want?
Right. And go ahead for 43 if you want.
So number 43, guys, understand that there are different kinds of fat bodies. Not all fat people have hourglass figures or carry their weight in societal acceptable places. Yeah, I can agree with that. And again, this one has more to do with like where we drawing the line between being body positive and being unhealthy. So I agree with number 43.
And then number 44 is listen to the stories of fat people who experience problems in our daily lives that you won't know anything about. Some of this may sound alien or unlikely to you, but because believe these stories, let them inform how you treat people. I think that that's just a good statement for how to treat people in general.
Yes.
Don't make assumptions. Talk to people and learn who they are, and talk with them, and then you can resonate with them better.
Yeah, and number 45 goes right into the like this is another one of those points where she tries to justify it with a follow-up point, and she says in telling us, well, you could just lose weight is not okay. Ever heard of victim blaming? Yeah, that is it. That's a very deflecting opinion in my opinion. Like, she's just deflecting like the simple solution. If you're upset every single day because people are calling you overweight, that means that you are doing exactly what the author talks about in the beginning. You're attaching a negative vibe to the word fat or to the word overweight because in your head you think it's a bad thing, but you do nothing about it. So if you're getting upset that someone's calling you overweight or fat, and someone says, well, why don't you lose the weight if it bothers you so much? It's not victim blaming. It's like, here's the solution to your problem. It's like if you're driving a car and you're like, damn, my car always pulls to the right because I need an alignment. And then someone's like, well, why don't you just get an alignment? Don't victim blame me. It's like, if we
Right.
break it down to like very simple terms, it is what it is. And obviously this is obviously a little bit more loaded than fixing your car because you have to learn how to take care of yourself. But we live in a world where you can literally go online, you can go on YouTube, how to lose weight, and you can start to educate yourself. You have to have some sort of drive to start to do these things on your own.
Exactly. And it's not like anybody's forcing any of this on you. So we'll get away from that though. 46, call out your friends, family members, and coworkers when they fat shame people in front of you. Remember that your silence gives them permission to keep doing this. That's just how you should deal with people in general. If somebody's being rude to somebody else, not calling them out on them is just enabling shitty behavior.
Yeah, like if you're getting bullied for any reason, and if you see someone getting bullied for any reason and you do nothing, you're kind of a shitty person. Doesn't matter what
Right.
it is. Number 47, don't expect every fat person to respond the same way to harassment. Fat positivity is complex. It involves years of undoing internalized shame and often the misogyny, racism, classism, and ableism that is linked to that too. Some days your fat friend will be angry and ready to take on the world. Other days she'll feel shit and sad about it. I mean, that can be applied to any kind of problem that you have. And this is where we draw the line, because if you're body positive, you're not going to get upset if someone calls you fat. But if you're on that line where you're starting to become a little overweight and you know it, then these things are going to start to bother you. And that's when, like I said, like people make fun of me for looking the way I look because I like to go to the gym. I don't care because I like the way I look. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
when you're body positive and you like the way you look and someone's making fun of you, you don't care. It's like if I dyed my hair orange and everyone made fun of me for having orange hair, but I liked it, I wouldn't care. So this number 47, I feel like it's like the opinions going back and forth because we're saying that we don't care, but at the same time we're saying that it does bother us. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's just, you got it. You got it.
At the end
Number
of the
48.
at the end of the day, every single person is going to have a different way to respond to things, and it's our job as a society and as a community to try to help each other out. In general, no matter what the issue is, no matter what we're talking about, if someone is in need of help, we should, as a community, try to help them. We shouldn't be judging them, making fun of them. There are ways to handle situations where even if it's something even if it's something that you disagree with, you can approach it in a positive way to try to help.
Exactly. And I think that's where this article could have been coming from. This article could have been coming from a place to try and help people instead of just being really negative and convincing people that things are awful.
Number
And then
40,
40,
yeah, number
yeah,
40.
48. Don't leave it to fat folk to call out fat shaming. The emotional labor of defending yourself is exhausting, and we need you to also send a message that it's unacceptable. I I think that everybody needs to be able to stand up for themselves. Um, and if you notice that somebody cannot stand up for themselves, I think that it's your responsibility as a good person to step in.
Yeah, and number 48 and 49, I mean, it's all like we've been saying. Like any decent person should be calling out bullying and no matter what form it comes in. So report fat phobia on online platforms. It's like it's cyberbullying if it's online. Cyberbullying is a huge deal. Obviously, you guys know that my wife and I are dealing with a really bad cyberbully right now, which I can talk about in a later video. Any form of cyberbullying is bad, and I feel like number 48 and 49 relate just to that in general. Like any decent person shouldn't be doing, you shouldn't be calling out and fat shaming, and you should be sticking up for people who need someone to stick up for them. Period.
Exactly.
Sean Gately, hey Scott, love your content. I've made a lot of progress, and like they say, love yourself whether you're strong, weak, fat, thin, or ugly. Very nicely put, Sean, and thank you so much for the donation, my friend. So let's get down to the last two right here. Okay, here we go. So number 50, guys. Sometimes you're going to accident. Oh, this one was a little. Yeah.
Whew.
Sometimes you're going to accidentally assume that someone is pregnant. You probably shouldn't go around pointing out or touching every pregnant belly you see, but once in a while you might mistakenly offer your seat to someone who isn't pregnant and is just carrying weight on their stomach. There's no perfect way to respond to this, but please remember that in this situation, your feelings do not matter. Take your lead from this person that you've affected. She's probably saying leave, right? Yeah, take your lead from the person you've affected and don't make it their job to make you feel better on top of having to process to begin with. Um, I mean, it's an honest mistake if something like that happens. It's almost like we should be afraid now to be like, hey, when's the baby due? Like, there's an obvious look when a woman is pregnant. It does look a certain way. It looks a little different than someone just being overweight. But like, if someone's saying when's the baby due, they're clearly not trying. Well, I mean, maybe some people are, but you can usually tell by their tone. But I would say like 9 times out of 10, most people who are trying to congratulate a woman on being pregnant isn't under the assumption that they're overweight and they're trying to shame them. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that too. Anybody that says when's the baby due is not doing so as a way to jab at you for having anything over your stomach. And then number
Whoa,
51,
whoa,
and
hold on,
lastly,
hold on.
I'll go for it.
If you get on a bus that's crowded, and you really want to sit down, and someone gives you their seat and thinks you're pregnant, go along with it. Take the seat. Like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, I really needed to sit down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's try to like fuse some humor. Like, take the seat. Like, if it doesn't bother you, if you're body positive and something like that wouldn't bother you to begin with, but you get to sit down, so it's actually can be a nice thing. But yeah, read number 51.
And lastly, never forget that if you're not advocating for fat women and non-binary people, then your feminism isn't intersectional because, and say it with me now, fat shaming and diet culture are tools of the patriarchy.
And just so you guys know, a patriarchy, that's a society ran mostly by men, and women's opinions don't matter. That's what patriarchy means. So I feel like number 51 kind of sums up the entire piece as where this person is coming from with their opinion and their points. I definitely don't agree with number 51. I mean,
I
that's a
don't think that
little.
anybody wants to keep you fat.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little crazy. So, this is the article that Joe and I had read. I think that was actually a pretty good conversation. I feel like a lot of people, even in the chat, obviously we were reading the chat as we were going through this. You know, everyone seems to be very accepting and non-biased of this. Like, we know that there is a point, there is a line that is drawn where, yeah, there's body positive, but then there's a point to where things start to get a little dicey because you're becoming unhealthy. And then you start to have medical problems. You start to have all these other issues that happen. And it's my job and Joe's job as trainers to try to help people. And I think the biggest thing is, Joe, when we talk to people in groups coming from where this author is coming from, it's almost like they automatically assume that because we're knowledgeable about health and fitness, that we're automatically going to judge them as lazy and as not trying to, have a follow a structured meal plan or a workout program. And it's almost like no matter what we say, no matter how we say it, to a lot of people who kind of feel the way this author does, they think it's coming from a negative place or a judgmental place. And I think that's wrong.
Right. It's just in general, people are not assuming any sort of positive intent. And I mean, it's not like I'm going to walk up to anybody that is overweight or anything like that and be like, hey, I'm a personal trainer, so I'm going to tell you how to live your life. Like, I don't know their story. I don't know what they've got going on. I don't know what they're already working on. They could have come from like what Get Real Please was talking about. They could have come from a much larger place and have lost 200 some odd pounds. You know what I mean? And that's great. Maybe there might be something else that they still need. They might need some more help anyway, and that would just be something that I'd be offering if it ever came to a conversation like that.
Yeah, and I was watching this video the other day, and it was a discussion between people that are fitness nuts, and there were some people that were body positive, but they're clearly overweight. And they would ask questions, and then they would have people walk forward and sit down if they answered yes to the question. And there were questions like, do you follow a structured workout plan? And people from both sides would sit down and say, do you follow a structured meal plan? And both people would go and sit down. And to me, someone who's educated in health and fitness, I can't look at somebody who's, 100 to 200 pounds overweight, or even 80 pounds overweight, right? I can't look at someone who's 80 pounds overweight and then they look at me and they say, I follow a structured meal plan and I follow a workout routine and nothing ever changes, because it's like the equation doesn't add up. Structured meal plan plus consistent workout routine equals fat loss. Like, it's so to me, it's the person's basically saying to me without realizing it that they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to eat properly, and they don't know how to exercise properly. Even though that they're doing those things, they don't know how to maximize their efforts, which can also lead to quitting. Because if you're doing those things and seeing zero results, why would you continue to do it, right?
Right.
And so then if I were to open my mouth, I'm not saying everyone is like that, but then if I were to open my mouth and be like, okay, well, if you're eating correctly and you're exercising, but you're not losing weight, then you're probably doing something wrong. I can be seen automatically as the bad guy, where it's not coming from bad intentions whatsoever. It's just coming from the intentions of, hey, I know what I'm doing and I can help you and I would like to, but you have to let me.
Right. Exactly. And I think that I'm right on board with that as well. I mean, as someone that was, I've lost about 80 pounds from about 100 that I was overweight, and when I was doing something and I wasn't seeing results, I didn't just keep doing it, like that was how we met. I reached out. I was like, hey, like, I don't know. I don't have the knowledge to take myself further. I don't know how to find the results that I need, and I need help.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't triggered or anything like that when I was talking to you.
Yeah, not at all, man. I just want to show that one more thing before we start wrapping up our podcast and talking to the community. I found another article, and I thought this was very interesting, and I want to know what you guys think about this. So take a look really quick. The link to this is down in the info section below as well. Article's titled, What's Wrong with Fat Shaming? It's actually from 2013. So these were a series of ads that were ran in Georgia. A Georgia organization called Strong for Life ran these ads, and it's basically photos of kids that are a little bit overweight, and they have things like this. So if you take a look at your screen really quick, the first one has a young overweight black girl, and it says, warning, chubby kids may not outlive their parents. And the next one is a young overweight white boy, and it says, warning, big bones don't make me this way, big meals did. And then we have another overweight small white girl, and it says, warning, fat kids become fat adults. So these kids are young. Obviously, they're real people. They're a little bit overweight. And this was meant to be kind of like a tough love campaign. Henry, who made the article, I posted it in the info section. Henry, you can go down there and click it right now if you want to check it out. The link is down there. But, I was reading this, and I came to the article because when I was trying to find images for the thumbnail of this podcast, this image popped up on Google, and then obviously I went from the image to the article. And I showed it to Joe and I said, I can understand how this might be maybe a little too much for people, but at the same time, it's like it's the kind of tough love I feel some people need. Because nothing breaks my heart more than when I see young kids that are overweight. Because this is what I think. Like when I see a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid that's extremely overweight, I'm not talking about like a little kid who's just on the chubby side. I mean like an overweight little boy or girl. This is what I think. Chubby kids might not outlive their parents. Big bones don't make me this way. Big meals did. Fat kids become fat adults. And like, it gets me sad. Gets me sad, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, me too. Because a lot of what happens is that these kids, I mean, they don't know better. Obviously, their parents might have bad habits, or maybe there's something else going on. Maybe they are not feeling great about where they're at, and they are just eating a whole lot of candy, or maybe they're being told you can't leave the table until that plate is clear. You know what I mean? Like there could be a whole lot going on.
Well, and then people like to say, well, let's let kids be kids, let them eat what they want, do what they want. It's like, well, if your kid was walking, down railroad tracks and a train was coming, you wouldn't say let kids be kids. You'd get them off the tracks because they'll die. Well, like to me, like this is almost a form of child abuse. Like you're not letting a kid be a kid. You're actually preventing them from having a a different life when they get older that doesn't involve any kind of health risk like diabetes or heart disease or all the things associated with someone who's very overweight at a young age. And like, again, people don't like to hear it, but in my opinion, if you're letting your child just, eat whatever they want and do whatever they want, you're not being a good parent, and you're not helping that child. You're not letting your kid be a kid if they're 150 pounds by the time that they're 12.
Right.
Unless they're a freak and they're like 8 feet tall, but that's like 1 in a million.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what I would like to do is kind of maybe go to the comment section really quick, Joe. We planned on only doing like a 30-minute podcast, and we clearly went over that time.
Just a little bit.
But I mean, I feel like it was good because there was a lot to be said throughout the entire podcast that I think made it very interesting for a lot of people. Let's see. Yasin Lewis, also kids get bullied when they're fat, which is, yeah, I mean, there are things that go along. Like, I mean, kids get bullied for a lot of different things, but usually if you're typically the overweight kid in class, you get teased for it. And I'm not saying that it's right. It's obviously wrong and something needs to be done about it, but it's like, that's something that you can prevent by just not letting your kid get to that point. I feel like, I don't know how it is nowadays with kids. I feel like society in general is more accepting of being overweight, especially at a young age. But I know when I was a kid, it was like, if you were the overweight kid, you got made fun of. Where today, maybe not so much. But it doesn't mean that it's still good. Westland's short. Let's look at the real issue. Kids are kept inside in chairs to the end of high school. Yeah, I mean, that's true too. And kids are on their phones all day. They're playing video games all day. They're not riding bikes outside. Like, I haven't seen a kid ride a bike in my neighborhood, and I don't even know how long. And when I was a kid, I was on my bike every single day. Like, that's what you did. You went outside and you were on your bike. Now you go inside and play Minecraft.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I remember when I would come home from school in like middle school. I would come home, I would put all my stuff down, and then I would go straight outside. And I'd be outside until like 6, 7 o'clock, and then I would come inside, and then I would do my homework.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I used to do. I saw that you answered Izzy. So yeah, we're going to be doing mostly fitness-related topics, but we do want to try to cover, we will try to branch out even more as the podcast grows. Let's see, Native Texan. I'm one of those people who took time to lose, but finally on the right track, and I can see my abs and close to my six-pack and about to hit 50. Oh, wow. Congratulations, man. A little late to the fitness game, but you're taking it to the next level. I love it.
There you go.
What did I just... Number 32 wasn't on the list, someone said? What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. No, there was straight up no number 32. It went from number 31 to 33.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Brandon Adrian. I mean, that's kind of a mean thing to say, but yes, they definitely missed number 32. So it was only 50 reasons. Oh, man. Let's see. Maybe Scott. Oh, look at this. Kelv's Matt. Maybe if Scott ate more, he wouldn't have become a manlet. Oh, well, then I'm gonna
Oh,
put this user in timeout. See you later, bro. Let's see. Let's go to the bound. Let's take like 3 or 4 more questions real quick, or comments from the audience before we wrap this up. I think wave.
actually,
No, you can go.
I was actually going to talk about what Yasin L. West said. What do you think about people saying losing weight is easy? I think the process is easy, but it comes off as insensitive. I think I would actually agree with that as a general statement, right? Losing weight is a simple process, but that does not necessarily make it easy because there's so much re-education and reassociation that has to come into play with it.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're someone who is trying your best to lose weight, but you're misinformed, that can be a very triggering statement and can be demotivating. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, guys. That's what we need to take away from, and well, there's not much we can take away from this article, but in general, okay, if we talk about body positivity versus obesity, where do we draw the line? Like, there is clearly a line, okay? The line, I feel like, the line needs to be drawn when you start having health issues. You can't walk without sitting down. You obviously, if you get diabetes, is a big problem. If you go to the doctor and they say, hey, you're starting to get these issues because of your weight, and they start giving you a list, like, that's when the line needs to be drawn, and then you should seek help. But I agree, like, you need to seek help from viable sources, and it's really hard to find viable sources, even on YouTube, because there's so much junk out there. So I can see where the frustration comes from. But I mean, obviously, if you guys are here, you found one source that is viable, or 2 sources, Joe's channel too.
Oh, and get real, please. Let me check. I did receive your email. We're going to be talking with you for sure.
Here's one from Stone. My mic is super low. And maybe because I'm not close to it. Yeah, that's probably why. Stone says, I think the reason so many people fail to lose weight is that everyone is pushing low-carb diets and treating carbs like the devil. Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, there's people always trying to push simple solution. And I feel like a simple solution is just saying carbs are bad, eat less carbs. That's not really educating somebody on how to eat properly, because there's lots of choices that you can pick from when it comes to carbohydrates. Like, for example, if you're eating lots of fresh vegetables versus just bread all the time, like, they're both carbohydrates, but there's a clear difference between eating all kinds of fresh vegetables with your meals and a loaf of bread. It's like a big difference.
Yeah, there is a big difference for sure. And then somebody mentioned something about how it might not be easy for people with medical conditions. I mean, that goes without saying. If you have a medical condition that causes you to retain weight and causes you to retain, body fat, then obviously there's going to be an adjustment that needs to be made. But the thing is that there is an adjustment that can be made. You just need to talk with your doctors and talk with nutritionists and figure out what it is that you need to do to make that adjustment.
Correct. And I'd like to end today's podcast on a positive note, and I want to do it addressing Izzy Cruz. And he said, do you think too many people go cold turkey? And I feel like this is something that everyone's going to be able to take away from this. So I feel like a lot of people do go cold turkey, right? Let's say right now, let's say you're overweight, you're eating a ton of food every single day. Let's say you're eating like 4,000 calories a day, right? And you're supposed to be eating, we'll say, 2,000 calories. If you immediately decide the following day that you're going to go from 4,000 calories to 2,000 calories, your body is going to be like super hungry all the time. And the reason is because your body is used to getting 4,000 calories a day, and now you're only giving it 2,000. And, let's be honest, most people, when they try to lose weight, they go online and they see numbers like 1,300 to 1,500 calories to lose weight, but they don't really apply that to themselves because all the information you find online is usually kind of generic. So with such a huge jump or decrease in the amount of calories you're eating a day, your body doesn't understand what's going on. Like, your body doesn't know that it's going on a diet. It just knows that it was going from 4,000 calories a day down to 2,000 or 1,500. So my advice to you, if you're going to try to start to change your life and you listen to this podcast and you like what we had to say, You need to do it gradually, okay? If you're eating 4,000 calories a day, for the next 2 weeks, you need to be eating 3,500 calories. And then after that, 2 more weeks of eating 3,000 calories. And then after that, get it down to 2,500. And do a gradual decrease in your calories over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And that will allow you to not just kind of bounce back and splurge and destroy your meal plan and absolutely hate, well, I wouldn't call it dieting, hate eating properly. Because at this point, you're not on a diet. You're learning how to eat properly for your body type and what your goals are. And if you need help with that, you guys can go to muscularstrength.com. You can use my custom meal planner tool. It shows you how to do everything. But just understand that cold turkey when it comes to losing weight isn't really the best option. And even when you're trying to gain muscle, guys, if you're a skinny dude and you've been eating like 1,000 calories a day because eating is not one of your strong points, if you immediately go from 1,000 calories a day to 3,000, you're going to feel super sluggish all the time. You have to do a gradual progression even when trying to gain weight. So it works on both ends of the spectrum.
Seriously. And one other thing that I just want to tack on to the end of that is that even if you are, if you're trying to lose weight or get to a better point with your body, whatever, that doesn't mean that you have to stop eating the foods that you like. If you can plan for them and incorporate them in your meal planning, once you learn a little bit more about how to do it, you can still eat that stuff. I ate pizza this last weekend and I was lighter the day after. Like,
sometimes your body actually kind of wants those things. You eat clean for so long, you have a refeed day where you basically eat everything in sight. You'll actually feel so much better and stronger the following day. Like, it's crazy. But we won't get into that now. Joe, I think that was a really great podcast today. I want to thank everyone who tuned in. We had a pretty active audience the entire time. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you so much to everyone who donated to the podcast. It really means a lot to us.
yeah, it just enables us to do more for you guys. Like Scott said, in a little while, we might start doing this, 2 days a week. It could get crazy and we could do daily shows. You never know.
You never know. We could get real crazy. I would like to start having more guests on the show. So do me a favor, guys. Not in the chat window, but once the video is live, in like 15, 20 minutes, like actually live on YouTube, go in the comment section and start suggesting who you would like to see on the show, and also suggest for us, some topics that you want to hear us talk about. And obviously, if you haven't already, be sure to give that like button a little push so YouTube knows that you like the video, and subscribe for more great content. Yeah, you have to say, Joe, and as always, more good stuff coming soon.
Oh, okay. As always, more good stuff coming soon.
See you, everyone.
See ya.